Hey everyone, today's lesson is 1.4. So we're going to be in your note-taking guide. So grab that. Again, I think it's one that is kind of a review, but there's just a couple little key things to go over so that you don't make little mistakes. The problem should be easy, but there's always little mistakes that can happen. So in the note-taking guide, we're looking at comparing and ordering integers. Integers are basically your counting numbers, but include zeros and negatives. So, they give an example here. 1, 2, 3 continues on that direction. -1, -2, -3 going down the other direction. So we got our negative integers, positive integers. We'll talk about absolute value and opposites in a little bit. Okay, so the first type of problem you're going to see is they're just going to give you a list of numbers, and you just need to put them in order from whatever they say in the directions. A lot of times it's going to be least to greatest, which makes sense, going from left to right. So the biggest thing to remember is, positive numbers, everyone's going to know how to order those. Negative numbers, you just need to remember that the bigger a negative number looks, the actually smaller it is. The farther left it is on a number line, the smaller the number is. So here's the numbers they gave us, and then they went and put them on a number line. Then it's just, you don't have to put them on a number line to do these, but if you're a visual type person or just having troubles with these, you might want to do that, because then once you put them on a number line, now you just go in order. So you have -9, -8, -6, -2. Now once you hit 0 in the positives, it's easy. 0, 3, and 7. Okay. So here they actually did the number line and everything for you. So they give us a list of numbers. Okay. The one that looks like the biggest negative is -7. So that's actually the smallest number. And then we go -4, -1, 0, 2, 4, 6. Okay, so that's ordering integers. Okay, that should be review. If you have questions on it, let me know, but that should go pretty quick. Absolute value. The definition they give over here is the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0 on a number line. The absolute value of a number A is written as, and then they have the lines around A. So when you see these little lines around a number, that means absolute value. So here they say state the absolute value of the number. So the other way they could have wrote this without really writing out in the directions, if they would have wrote like this, that means find the absolute value of 7. If they have this, that means the same thing. Find the absolute value of -5. And now if you only have just a number inside, all you do is make that number positive, because 7 is 7 units away from 0. So absolute value of 7 is 7. -5, it's the other direction, but it's 5 units away from 0. So you just make that positive. Absolute value of -5 is 5. Okay, so anytime, basically, if it's just a single number inside parentheses, or not parentheses, the absolute value signs, you just make that number positive. If there's ever a expression inside, so let's say we had something like this, 2 minus 6 inside, you actually do the expression first, then you make your answer positive. So if this was inside, you don't make this a +6 and then add. You would do 2 minus 6, which is -4. So this is just a separate, we'll call this example C. Another example. Then now you make that just positive. Okay, so absolute value is always going to be a positive number unless there was some sort of there was a negative on the outside. I'll show you maybe a different example of that in a second. Now that's kind of similar but different than the opposite of a number. So if they ever ask you to find the opposite of a number, all you do there is change the sign. It's like getting the mirror image across 0. So the opposite of 3, we're 3 away from 0 here, so we go 3 away from 0 the other way. That's -3. We're just changing the sign. Opposite of -8, you change the sign, it's +8. Okay? So the directions down here say state the absolute value and the opposite of the number. So the absolute value, that's what they're saying first here. So we'll say, we'll call it AV, is 9, just stays positive. Absolute value of 9 is 9. The opposite, you change the sign. So this we'll call the opposite. So 9 goes to -9. Here, so the answers in this one are different. When we get a negative number here, the answers will actually be the same because the absolute value, we make this -12 positive. The opposite, well, it was a -12. The opposite, we change the sign, so that's also 12. So the answers can be different in this case or opposite, or the same in this case. So that's the main parts of 1.4. Study guide does have a couple other problems, so they go over the same stuff here, the ordering, absolute value, opposite, so there's some more examples there. One thing that they have here that's probably good to look at is a couple little expressions with absolute values. So here it says evaluate this expression, absolute value of x minus 4 when x is -10. So first thing is substitution. They put the -10 in for x. So now we have absolute value -10 minus 4. Okay, so now this one's a little different than the one I showed you on the other page that I made up because I had the math inside the absolute value. Here, the absolute value is around this, so you change that to a +10 first. Now you subtract the 4. 10 minus 4 is 6. So if we were going to do these, again, if you're going to do the practice worksheet to get extra credit, you should show the steps here. Okay, so this, we have 9 times the absolute value -7. The -7's inside the bars, so you need to do that first. So now it changes to 9 times absolute value -7 is 7. We get 63. So I know, like in that practice workbook, they'd show this problem, and in the back, the answer would just show here. I need to see one of these 2 steps, okay, to get your extra credit. Here, this is one where a lot of people will make a mistake. We have -7 plus, this means the opposite of x, okay, or it's kind of like -1 times x, okay? So if we have the opposite of x, now you could not even have to write it out. You can just look at this and do the math, or you could write a negative, and then another parentheses, -7. But I think this, if you say this is the opposite of x, or a negative x, well, x is a -7, so that would change to +7, kind of like an absolute value. Except the difference here is if you had the same thing, but the x was like a +4, then it would become a -4 because it's just the opposite. There's no absolute value here. They just want to take the opposite of x. Now you add those together, -7 and 7 is 0. Okay. Last one, and I might show you one other thing here. 18 plus absolute value of -7. So now it's just an addition problem. Absolute value -7 is a +7. We add those up and we get 25. Okay. The only other type of problem that you could see is, let's box this off. The only one that would be a little different, let's use the same x here as -10. Let's say we had negative, then absolute value, and then Let's just say +4 or something. So now the difference here is this says take absolute value. This is on the outside. So we need to take the absolute value of this negative, which would be 10. But now this negative is on the outside, so it stays there. And now we do -10 + 4 gives us a -6. So that's just one case where, I mean, you get in the habit of having absolute values always positive, and this still is, but because there's this negative on the outside, you put that with it. Okay. So if you're understanding those, you're probably good on 1.4 here. Probably beneficial to take a look at a couple. Oh, here's probably a good thing. We didn't look at this, so let's do over a couple of these. On your practice worksheet, I'll just do a couple here. Remember these symbols, the less than, greater than, or you can just think of it as you open towards the bigger number, point towards the smaller number. So these can be confusing with all negative numbers. Now, like something like number 7, you have a positive and a negative. That shouldn't even be an issue. The positive number is bigger, so it opens towards the bigger. This is red, 15 greater than -18. That shouldn't be hard. It's one like these that people get a little confused, okay? If you have both negative numbers, you got to think about which one is farther left on a number line, okay? So if we have 0 here, -9 would be here. Now, where would the -17 be? Numbers look like they get bigger going this way, so -17 would be over here somewhere. Okay, that means this is smaller because it's farther left. So it should point towards the smaller or open towards the bigger, and that should look like that. So you can try a couple other these ones there on that. Then we just have some absolute value, opposite problems, some expressions, and some temperatures. So that's why Minnesotans are probably a little better with negative numbers and understanding the bigger the negative number looks, actually the smaller, because we deal with temperatures like that. So do what you want on that page. If you're doing a bunch of them, send it to me, get a couple extra points. And if you have any questions, let me know.